The national disgrace continues. Democrats will not fund TSA, which is the government's job. And now the entire U.S. Senate has left town. Senate's in recess. Meanwhile, while the Senate is in recess on vacation, guess what? They are collecting their paychecks. What's wrong with this picture, right? By the way, a personal question to you. What would happen if that's how you did your job? Just said, no, won't do it, shrugged your shoulders, and then went on holiday. You and I both know that answer. Meanwhile, in some airports, America's passengers have had hours and hours and hours of miserably long lines. People are having to arrive 3, 4, 5 hours before their flights. And even if your airport doesn't have a long line, you don't dare risk it and not show up hours and hours early in case there is a line. For more than 6 weeks, TSA has been working without pay, many forced to call out sick, get second jobs like driving Uber, or even just quit. But now President Trump has had it with Capitol Hill and with what they are doing to TSA employees and passengers. So with questionable authority, the president signed an executive order directing that TSA employees be paid. I suspect authority or no authority, the TSA and most Americans are cheering the president's decision. More than one has said it, but former Secretary of State Colin Powell has been quoted as saying, "Sometimes I'd rather beg forgiveness than ask for permission." I suspect that is President Trump's thinking about this questionable executive order to pay TSA. So now paychecks are coming in, food, rent, bills will hopefully be paid. In the meantime, the shutdown continues. We are on day 44. This is the longest government shutdown in U.S. history. And let me say it again, Congress is on recess for the next 2 weeks. Something else, isn't it? And today, because of the stroke of President Trump's executive order, TSA says most workers were paid for at least 2 missed paychecks. Earlier, we heard from the White House.
This bold and necessary action by President Trump will ensure our TSA workers receive their hard-earned paychecks. It should not have come to this point, but President Trump will always do what's right by the American people, and he found a way to do that, to get TSA paid.
As the White House and the president get a handle on paying TSA, there is another concern brewing at airports. It is jet fuel. The war in Iran has been pushing up oil prices. Since the war started on February 28th, the cost of jet fuel has more than doubled. So how are airlines handling the extra cost? Well, you guessed that one right. Passing the higher costs on to the passengers with pricier tickets and fewer flights. Delta Airlines is increasing fares, while United Airlines says it is cutting about 5% of its flights. Former TSA administrator and former FBI director John Pistole joins me. Nice to talk to you, sir. And just how did they do this the past 2 weeks? I went through TSA on Thursday. I got to tell you, they were working hard. They even, and working well. They caught a little hairspray can in my bag, which I didn't know I had. They were doing their jobs for the American people. And how did they get why did they do that? Why did they show up and work hard like they did?
Yeah, well, thanks, Greta. Yeah, look, these are men and women of TSA are professionals. They, like government employees, they've taken an oath to uphold the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And that means even in a dysfunctional Washington with Congress just not doing their job, and yet the TSA workers showing up for over 5 weeks of not paid, and now hopefully most of them are getting paid, that back pay today. But it comes down to what's the morale of the agency and those frontline workers, and how do they best do their job when they can't pay their bills at home, as has been covered so well. So, I applaud the pay, but it's a short-term fix, and they need to figure out something long-term through the end of the fiscal year, September 30th, to make sure that these hardworking men and women can reasonably expect that they go to work and they get paid. Just like, say, if you don't show up for work,
well,
you get fired.
That's an easy answer. That's an easy answer. Yeah. I said it last week. Give each one of them $30,000 who showed up tax-free bonus. They did that. They kept the country going. They kept passengers going. They kept commerce going. And they did that without getting paid. And I'm sure they're suffering at home and wondering. Some are doing second jobs and stuff like that. So that's, we ought to reward them somehow. Not, it's nice that the passengers are thanking them, but let's do some real reward.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Greta. I think you should run for something and get elected and get that through. So get some people can get some things done there. That would be a great morale boost, and obviously. But one of the things I have concerns about is their ability to recruit and retain future employees. How many of those 3,500 that called out sick over the weekend will actually come back. And then how many of those 500 plus, 550 or so who have resigned, what do they do to replace them in terms of people who are looking for a good government job with some security if they don't have that security? Like I say, the longest shutdown affecting DHS in history.
I don't even begrudge those that called out sick this past weekend because many of them probably have families that have been hounding them. They probably have a terrible situation at home because the families are worried. Maybe they got a second job, then go do something over the weekend where they can make some extra money. They're not getting paid for TSA. So, I mean, the ones that even called in like this last weekend and stuff, I don't blame them because, as I said, I'm grateful. They keep those planes safe. Sometimes, as I say, I get annoyed when I get caught with more than 3 ounces of shampoo, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, exactly. And look, they're trying to do their jobs. I was just speaking to a local college here where I live, and talked about the underwear bomber and Richard Reed, the shoe bomber, and those things those are clear and present dangers that terrorists have tried to exploit in the past. But fortunately, by the grace of God, I would say that their explosives didn't go off. But if the men and women of TSA aren't doing their job, I can guarantee that there will be somebody, either terrorist related or somebody with a mental health issue, that will try to wreak havoc at an airport. And maybe it's just walking into a terminal someplace, or some places where the lines, security checkpoints are outside the airport, outside the terminals, and just try to hurt or kill as many people as they can for their cause. Oh, and by the way, we're at war with Iran. And what are the possibilities? Not to be a doomsayer, but just, it's all about mitigating, managing risk.
What's the pay? What's the starting pay, and what's the top pay for some at TSA?
Yeah, so the new TSOs, as they're referred to, transportation security officers without locality pay, are around $35,000, so not much. And many of them who, of course, work in the high cost areas will get a locality pay. But that's not enough. For example, Houston, not the highest cost area, but terrible traffic, as in most large metropolitan areas. And so they have long commutes. And now with the price of gas going up so much because of the war, those are the ones who, like you said, maybe they're doing something else, a gig job or something, so they can pay the bills and get things done. So it's probably the average for the newer employees is probably 40 to 45,000.
You know what? I'm going to take the last word on this, but if I were in Congress, and even if I couldn't get my friends in Congress on either side of the aisle to do something, I would not go home for vacation. I'd even sleep in my office, show some dignity that I cared. But, so it enrages me. But John Pistole, thank you, sir, and thank you to the TSA. Thank you.
Thank you, Greta.
Coming up, President Trump has his eyes set on a tiny island thousands of miles away. Which island and why? That when the record continues.
Whenever news breaks.
A lot of destruction there. It was really the front lines in the battle.
And wherever it happens.
Humanitarian corridors opened up this morning.
We're trying to go rescue a 96-year-old lady that doesn't have anybody to take care of her.
They're using ingenuity. They refuse to give up.
It's incoming fire. Come on. Yeah, let's get down here.
Newsmax is there for you.
Leaf Filter is America's #1 gutter protection system.
Yeah, because it's built right.
But you didn't just take our word for it.
I didn't. I went to an install, I saw how it was built, I took it apart.
Then you know, Leaf Filter is designed to keep debris out of your gutters and water flowing. And you get a lifetime guarantee.
When it's built right, it shows. That's why it's Homes Approved.
It's good to be #1.
Always.
Schedule your free gutter inspection today. Call 877-77-HOMES or visit leaffilter.com/homes.
WeatherTech isn't just for new cars. No matter how old or new your car is, it deserves WeatherTech. With laser measured protection for practically every car on the road, we've got you covered. Because messes don't care what year your car is. Whatever you're driving, we got it. We got it. We got it. Got it. We got it. We got it. We've got it. Oh. We got it. No matter what year your vehicle is, it deserves WeatherTech. Order your American-made protection today at WT.com. We're WeatherTech. We got it.
Some wireless companies say that they stand for something. What exactly do they stand for, and why won't they say it out loud? Let me tell you what Patriot Mobile stands for. They stand for the lives of the unborn. They stand for the Second Amendment and the right to protect yourself and your family. They stand for our veterans and first responders who sacrifice so much for our freedom. Make the switch to Patriot Mobile today and support a company that doesn't just say they stand for something, but one that stands for the things that matter the most.
President Trump, in his blunt way, has a new threat for Iran. Today, regarding negotiations with Iran, the president said, quote, "Great progress has been made, but if for any reason a deal is not shortly reached, which it probably will be, and if the Hormuz Strait is not immediately open for business, we will conclude our lovely stay in Iran by blowing up and completely obliterating all of their electric generating plants, oil wells, and Kharg Island, and possibly all desalination plants, which we have purposely not yet touched," end quote. Kharg Island sits about 16 miles off Iran's coast. It's about 1/3 the size of Manhattan. So why is this tiny blip on the map so important? Because it is Iran's economic lifeline. It is their oil hub, and any disruption to operations on Kharg Island could further impact how much you pay for a gallon of gas. Kharg Island handles about 90% of Iran's total crude oil exports. It generates between $30 to $60 billion a year in revenue. There are only about 8,000 people who live on Kharg Island. Yesterday, President Trump told the Financial Times, quote, "To be honest with you, my favorite thing is to take the oil in Iran, but some stupid people back in the U.S. say, why are you doing that? But they are stupid people. Maybe we take Kharg Island, maybe we don't. We have a lot of options. It would also mean we had to be there for a while. I do not think they have any defense. We could take it very easily," end quote. Retired U.S. Air Force General and former combat C-17 Commander General Blaine Holt joins me. Nice to see you, sir. And I'm not suggesting or hoping or encouraging the taking of Kharg Island, but could we take Kharg Island, and would it be as devastating as the president suggests in that post?
We could take Kharg Island. It would probably involve a great deal of risk, because the only way you're going to take an island like that is to secure it with the now afloat and on-station Marines. You'll need a lot of air power to do that. You'll need to soften up or eliminate all IRGC targets there and make sure that we have constant combat air patrol over the coast of Iran to make sure nothing goes near that island. And still, it would be very risky, but it is a very important piece of real estate, because it's not just about the oil getting through and the future economy for the free Iranian people, but it is also the thing that keeps China on the sidelines. That represents about 13 to 18% of their oil intake on any given day. So it's very vital, and the president would probably be weighing from some very tough options if he has to send in the Marines.
Well, if we do that, we got to get a lot of assets there, which is right up your alley. You were a commander of a C-17, which can get a lot of assets over there fast. Do you have any sort of sense? Oh, look at that picture. Do you have any sort of sense of how we stand in getting the assets over there, should the president decide that he thinks we should do that?
Yes, we have all these packages, including the C-17 airborne delivery capability, at the ready right now. We have almost every single thing that we need in country and in region right now. But there would, to your point, there would be some specialized materials that are delivered. Also, we would be using C-17s likely in the southern part of Iran to get to a future rebel force, to get them equipped properly and allow them to take matters into their own hands on the other side of the coast.
You know, look at that C-17, just as an aside. It hardly looks like it should be able to fly. I mean,
it's a joy to fly.
It is so big. It has those four. It is those four. I mean, there are 4 engines, but you get 4 engines on the old DC-8, and there are a lot of even some, some private commercial aircraft now has 3 engines. But that thing is just so fat.
160,000 pounds of thrust at sea level. That's a Force 5 Hurricane, and she has saved my life in combat about 4 to 5 different times now. She's the Millennium Falcon of our Air Force.
All right, she moves everything over there. But in terms of we can't, at least as best I can figure out, we can't win this by air alone. And I don't want boots on the ground, I understand, because it's such a large area, it's mountainous, there's so much stuff buried. So I mean, I assume that we have just so many challenges, to try to get in there and get all the uranium if we want it, the enriched uranium. I mean, it really is a challenge for our military, is it not?
It is, but the ideal path is still present. If the Iranian people will take matters into their own hands and we use air power to back them up and help them, once the government is toppled, the IRGC falls into the hands of the new government, then they will likely just open up the gates and let us come in and help secure the straits, go get the uranium, and help them rebuild their brand new country that they select their own leader.
Well, I don't mean to be so flip, but getting the Iranian leadership is a little bit like the clown car at the circus. I mean, every time you keep opening the door, another one shows up, another one shows up. I mean, they've had some. I mean, every morning I wake up and I find out that Israel's eliminated another leader, but then there's another one. Although we don't know who the ultimate leader is, but I mean, they have so many layers in their leadership.
Well, we're in the third tier of that leadership now, and a lot of them, quite frankly, that's why the president's tweets are so hard to understand, because he's messaging so many different groups. And so when he says, oh, we're just going to wipe out all these things, he's really talking to the IRGC, and the IRGC now is deciding whether they're going to now join the resistance, because there's really a dead end for them. And the mullahs and what's left of the regime is actually threatening us, but they're really messaging their own people too, to say, hey, no, we're still in control. So a lot of psyops, a lot of information warfare. But overall, as we look through signal through noise, we are on the right track as of today.
General Blaine Holt, always nice to talk to you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Senior correspondent John Huddy joins me from Tel Aviv, where it is 11:17 p.m. John.
Yeah, 11:17, but people are out despite a couple missile barrages earlier. You know, Greta, earlier this evening and this afternoon, I was talking about how quiet it was here. I hadn't heard a siren, no alerts since really yesterday morning, and then I guess I spoke too soon, because this evening we got the alert, sirens went off. There were several interceptions, even live while I was on air a couple hours ago, sending us to the bomb shelters. Unclear if there were any cluster bomb impacts. You know, what we've been seeing, as I've been reporting, are cluster bomb munitions landing in central Israel, landing in the Tel Aviv region. Even on Friday night, there was a cluster bomb that landed just on the other side of our location where we were staying, showing that, you know, this can happen at any point, at any time. But clearly, Iran's ballistic missile launching capabilities have been degraded. We are seeing indications of that as the IDF has launched a wave of attacks throughout the weekend, targeting ballistic missile manufacturing facilities. God bless you. We had some people here who wanted to jump on air with us, but they're walking away. They're going to dinner. That said, Israelis are undeterred. You know, they're still coming out, Greta. They're still going to dinner. They're still coming out on the streets, despite the threat of cluster munitions, ballistic missiles, and also Hezbollah in the north. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying last night in an address to the nation that the IDF is continuing to expand its ground operations in southern Lebanon to push Hezbollah back more than 20 miles from the border of northern Israel, as Hezbollah has been firing a consistent amount of rocket barrages and suicide attack drones at northern Israel, often in coordination with these Iranian ballistic missile attacks. Though the frequency and number of ballistic missiles has gone down, we are seeing that on the ground right now, but there still is that coordinated effort. And then, of course, Greta, the Houthis jumping in, threatening on Friday to fire missiles at Israel. Well, they did on Saturday, a cruise missile, ballistic missile. Both were intercepted, did not cause any damage. You know, but again, there were reports even tonight, Greta, that possibly there was going to be a major coordinated effort between Hezbollah, the Houthis, and Iran. So far, we haven't seen that. And as I said, people are out enjoying the night here in Tel Aviv. Back to you.
Which I always think is so weird. In the middle of a war, people are out having dinner. Same thing in Ukraine. They're out having tea in the middle of the afternoon. It's like so unusual. John Huddy, thank you.
It's busy. Thank you.
Coming up, could a new law be a deterrent for future terror attacks, and will it get enacted? That when the record continues.
You know, everybody's reporting the same stories, the same spin. You turn the channel, it's always the same. But not us. We're different. We report the real news. No spin, just the facts. Turn to us, and you won't turn back.
Tune in to Rob Schmidt tonight on Newsmax.
I'm Elmer Heinrich, at 92 years of age, with my wife Shirley, who is 83. Now, both of us are still cutting a wide swath in life, all because of Immuno 150. Now, neither of us have any kind of sickness, and we're as flexible as we were 30 years ago, and we still do the physical things we did 30 years ago. Now, we are asking you to use Immuno 150 like we do. Give it a chance for at least 90 days so that you can see what 70 plant minerals and 80 additional nutrients can do for you. You won't believe it. Immuno 150 is an awesome nutritional supplement. There's nothing like it.
Yes, it really is incredible.
Yeah, try it. You will be surprised. Order online or call the number listed on the screen, but don't place your order until after you've watched the 3 videos on our website. Thank you from both of us, and God bless.
What if you're sick at home or traveling and can't get medical help or prescriptions? Doctors say a medical emergency kit is the answer. Joining me is Dr. Drew.
Thank you. And yes, these kits put you in charge of your health. They come with physician-prescribed medication to treat multiple common and some serious issues as well.
What are some examples?
Sure. Generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, other essential antibiotics and antivirals that treat flu, pneumonia, strep, ear infections, sinus infections, urinary tract infections, and more.
So it is like urgent care and a pharmacy at home?
Exactly. No waiting, no pharmacy, no copays. You feel better faster and avoid serious complications.
How do you know what medicines to take?
You just match your symptoms to the doctor-written guide or schedule a quick telehealth call.
Sound advice. Order online in minutes at the website below and save $45. Thank you, doctor.
Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code news.
If you still have bad breath by lunchtime, your mouthwash isn't working. Smart Mouth is the only mouthwash that prevents bad breath for 24 hours. This is the only mouthwash I recommend. Upgrade your mouthwash to Smart Mouth today and never have bad breath again.
During the Omaha Steak Spring Savings Event, prices are going down. Save up to 50% with entrees about $5 per serving. Order now to get 8 burgers free. This spring, watch the prices fall at omahasteaks.com/TV.
Stop, check this out. Our most advanced performance frame, Talon, is out. It's a bestseller. We just got it back in stock, and I want to show you a little bit about it. These come with our signature lost and broken protection, and you can try them risk-free for 30 days. Check them out at shadyrays.com.
We age because our cells do. Fatty 15 is the first and only pure C15 supplement, a crucial nutrient that actually reverses aging at the cellular level.
I'm 56 and a half, and I want to feel my best and look my best, and I find this is the one supplement that has helped me get the results I want.
Fatty 15 has over 36 cellular activities that support metabolic, cognitive, liver, red blood cell, and immune health. Give your cells what they've been missing. Use code TV for 15% off your order at fatty15.com.
This law is getting worldwide attention. Today, the Israeli Knesset passed a death penalty law for convicted terrorists. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu voted for the new death penalty. Under the law, Palestinian terrorists convicted of murdering Israelis will be sentenced to death. Military courts can change the penalty to life in prison for what is described as special circumstances. Under the new law, the death sentence will be carried out within 90 days of sentencing. The execution is by hanging. Sponsors of the bill say it's a deterrent against terror and serves as a measure of justice for victims. Opponents call it racist and draconian. The law is expected to go into effect within 30 days. The bill does not apply, by the way, retroactively to October 7th terrorists, but there is a separate bill under consideration for those terrorists. You may be asking yourself, doesn't Israel already have a death penalty? Answer, yes, it does. It's for crimes against humanity, war crimes, and treason. Israel, by the way, has only used the death penalty twice since 1948, which is the year Israel became a state. In 1948, Meir Tobiansky was killed by firing squad. He was an IDF officer accused of treason. Sometime after his execution, he was exonerated. And in 1962, Nazi officer Adolf Eichmann was convicted for crimes against humanity. He was hanged. Eichmann was a key figure behind the final solution, which, of course, is the plan that killed millions of Jews during the Holocaust. Professor Emeritus of Harvard Law School, Alan Dershowitz, joins me. Nice to see you, sir. This law in Israel, you're in favor of it or opposed to it? I know that for years you have fought the death penalty here in the United States, but sometimes, I mean, there are different circumstances and different reasons and life changes. What's your thought on this law?
I'm completely against it for a lot of reasons, but
if Israel passes it and it goes into effect, it will bring it into the same orbit as the United States. We have laws today executing terrorists, executing murderers. Probably half the countries in the world do. But Israel will be singled out for criticism because somehow more is expected of it than of other countries. My prediction is that the law will pass and it will be struck down as unconstitutional by the Supreme Court of Israel on the ground that it doesn't apply to Jewish terrorists who kill Palestinian people. And I think the court would strike it down, saying if you're going to have a death penalty, it has to apply equally to Jews and Palestinians on both sides, the people who perpetrate and the people who are victims. So I am fairly confident that the Supreme Court will strike it down. Look, this is political. It's very hard to vote against a law that would prevent terrorists from kidnapping people and exchanging them for prisoners. That's the real purpose behind this, by the way. The purpose is to kill the terrorists so that they can't be traded for other people. But I understand the motive behind it. I understand the politics behind it, but I'm against it.
You know, but it is peculiar that it applies only to one class. I mean, that of terrorism. It's so as an American and having tried cases myself, it's the mere fact that it doesn't apply to everybody in a similarly situated crime, suggests that it won't stand constitutional muster.
The United States passed the statute saying that only aliens, illegal aliens, who are in the country illegally and commit murder get the death penalty. I don't think the Supreme Court would uphold that either. And so the Supreme Court of Israel, which is very similar to the Supreme Court of the United States in many ways, will, I'm fairly confident, strike it down. I hope it's defeated legislatively, but I understand the incentive behind it and why politically it's hard for Prime Minister Netanyahu, who I think personally has opposed the death penalty over the years, but I can see how difficult it is to oppose the death penalty for people who deliberately and willfully murder, rape, and pillage, innocent children and babies like they did in October 7th. So October 7th is...
What I think is so interesting about the Israelis have also, I've always admired their judicial system. Even you take the Sinwar, who was a terrible person and was a Palestinian prisoner and who developed a brain tumor, and the Israelis, while he was in prison, saved his life. They saved his life, even though he was a terrible person. And then he got released. And then he moves to Gaza, becomes a Hamas leader, and is one of the architects of October 7th. Israel worked really hard to save this man's life.
I can tell you another story. My friend, who was the Chief Justice of Israel, Aaron Barak, lost his whole family in the Holocaust. He was miraculously saved. He lived in a wall during the Holocaust with his mother. And when they convicted Ivan the Terrible, Demyanjuk, of mass murders, Aaron Barak wrote the opinion reversing the conviction on procedural and constitutional grounds. So, the Israeli judiciary has been very, very fair. And that's why I think they will strike down this law, which on its face discriminates in favor of one religious group and against another religious group.
Well, there was a controversy before October 7th when Prime Minister Netanyahu wanted to change the way judges were selected in Israel. Whatever happened to that?
Well, that's still on hold, and there are good arguments on both sides. The judiciary has gone much further than the American judiciary. They've abolished standing, cases and controversies, many other kinds of limitations that the American judiciary has. And so there's a reasonable dispute going on in Israel, but it's become far too political and far too much on the street rather than in the classroom. But it's being resolved, and I think it will be resolved.
And of course, there's the oddity, I think, that Netanyahu has been on trial for about 5 years in between October 7th and fighting this war. He's got to appear and testify in his own trial.
His trial is for mostly non-crimes and non-serious crimes, and he ought to be pardoned, and he ought not to be on trial. That's my view.
That's what I think. And I agree with you on that. Anyway, Professor Alan Dershowitz, nice to talk to you, sir.
Thank you for having me.
And Newsmax CEO Chris Ruddy sat down with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and during his exclusive interview, Chris asked Netanyahu about the Strait of Hormuz. Here's that exchange.
President Trump, you know as well as I do, he gets a laser focus when he sees a problem.
He does indeed.
And nothing will stop him from fixing that problem. And the problem I think he's really focused on now is what you just mentioned, the energy pipeline, the Strait of Hormuz. And he's very concerned about keeping that open. For the moment, the Iranians seem to have that as a choke point. How do you think you and the United States can open that strait so that Iran can no longer choke the energy? I heard there's about 1,000 ships or close to it waiting to go through either side of the waterway. How do we open it up?
I think there are military solutions to that the United States is leading, and I won't get into that. But I think post-war, there are things that I hear from the Arab countries and from in the United States as well. And I think these are interesting ideas to divert all the energy pipelines, oil and gas, from the Gulf, where the Iranians have a geographic choke point, westward to across Saudi Arabia, to the to the Red Sea, and up there to the Mediterranean ports, our ports in Israel, and therefore you just get around the geographic choke point. So you have an immediate problem of opening the Gulf, but a long-term interest to get around the geography and allow basically free flow of oil and gas.
Chris also asked the Israeli Prime Minister about a specific incident on Palm Sunday.
Mr. Prime Minister, we already have some news here in Israel that during Palm Sunday, yesterday, here in Jerusalem at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the Latin Patriarch, the Catholic Archbishop, was denied the ability to say Mass on Palm Sunday. What really happened?
Well, what happened was that the Iranians have been firing missiles at the old city of Jerusalem, where you have the Al-Aqsa Mosque, one of the holiest places for Islam, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, one of the holiest places for Christianity, and the Western Wall, which is the holiest place for Judaism. And the fragments nearly hit the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. So as a result, the Israeli security authorities said, okay, let's take out the worshippers right now because they'd be hurt. There's no protection there. And that was a general instruction that applied to the Jewish places, to the Muslim places, and to the Christian places. And that was the reason that a police officer on duty said, oh, okay, I'm applying it also to the Patriarch. Now, look, I think that was, I can understand the concern for his safety, and that was the only concern. There was no malice here, no bad intention, unlike the press reports. But nevertheless, I said, despite this concern, I gave an instruction immediately, the minute I heard about it. No, he should be free, the Patriarch, to come with his party and perform services as he wishes.
The full interview will run tonight in the 5 p.m. hour, about a half hour from now, during Ed Henry's The Big Take. Coming up, fighter jets scrambled and flares deployed over Palm Beach, Florida, as the president was in his Mar-a-Lago home. Find out why when the record continues.
Over time, moss, mold, and mildew stains cover your home, and cleaning them is too much work. You need Wet and Forget, the easy bleach-free way to clean tough outdoor stains. For decks, patios, and cushions, use Wet and Forget outdoor spaces. No scrubbing, no rinsing. Just apply and let it do the work for you over time. Got a bigger job? Reach second-story siding and roofs with Outdoor Max. Up to a 30-foot reach and 2 times the coverage. Get Wet and Forget at these leading retailers.
Before Apoquel Chewable for allergic itch, giving dogs pills was a battle of wits.
Oh, Maria, I'm wise to your foolish game.
Is it gone?
Totally gone.
Relief for itchy dogs can be easier. Apoquel, the trusted #1 treatment for allergic itch, is available in a tasty chewable that works fast.
May cause worsening of existing parasitic skin infestations, serious infections, or pre-existing cancers. New neoplasias have been observed. Do not use in dogs under 12 months of age with serious infections or in breeding, pregnant, or lactating dogs.
Ask your vet for Apoquel Chewable.
Do it!
I'm Elmer Heinrich, at 92 years of age with my wife Shirley, who is 83. Now, both of us are still cutting a wide swath in life, all because of Immuno 150. Now, neither of us have any kind of sickness, and we're as flexible as we were 30 years ago, and we still do the physical things we did 30 years ago. Now, we are asking you to use Immuno 150 like we do. Give it a chance for at least 90 days so that you can see what 70 plant minerals and 80 additional nutrients can do for you. You won't believe it. Immuno 150 is an awesome nutritional supplement. There's nothing like it.
Yes, it really is incredible.
Yeah, try it. You will be surprised. Order online or call the number listed on the screen, but don't place your order until after you've watched the 3 videos on our website. Thank you from both of us, and God bless.
Thanks to Jointivia, I'm back in the swing of things. Wait, $70 for a refill?
You gotta try Single Care. Just look up your prescription, show the coupon at the pharmacy, and save.
See why more people are saving with Single Care.
What if your GLP-1 for weight loss was as easy to take as a mint? Small, discreet, and easy. Think about that. No needles. This is compounded tirzepatide, a mint-flavored tablet designed to fit into your daily routine. You simply let it dissolve under your tongue. No mixing, filling, or storing your own syringes. Tirzepatide helps curb appetite and supports healthier eating by reducing cravings, including for sweets and carbs. And when your appetite feels under control, it can make it easier to eat less and move intentionally towards your weight loss goals. If weight loss has been on your mind, this may be the needle-free option you've been looking for. A simple daily tablet, as easy to take as a mint. Getting started is fast and surprisingly accessible. Just complete a quick online physician consultation. Here's how.
Save $50 with promo code SLIM at noneedles.com/slim. That's promo code SLIM at noneedles.com/slim.
Fighter jets scrambled and flares deployed over Palm Beach, Florida. Why? Well, yesterday, a civilian plane breached restricted airspace very close to President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort. The North American Aerospace Defense Command confirmed that F-16 fighter jets intercepted an aircraft that flew into a temporary flight restriction zone. This zone is enforced when the president is at Mar-a-Lago. According to NORAD, in the recent months, dozens of similar incidents have been reported, and there's more trouble in the skies. Also yesterday, American Airlines Flight 2819 took off from New York's JFK Airport. It was expected to land at Chicago O'Hare International Airport, but instead, it was diverted to Detroit. This was due to a disruptive passenger. According to passenger Margaret Weinstock, the disruptive passenger was screaming that he was going to, quote, blow up the plane and kill everyone, end quote. Well, when the plane landed in Detroit, as I'm sure you guessed, the FBI was there and removed the disruptive passenger. A few hours later, the plane took off from Detroit, finally landing in Chicago. Aren't you glad you weren't on that flight? What a nightmare. It is midterm season, so get ready for your TV to be flooded with campaign ads. This one got my attention.
She was saying bye-bye. Spencer, saca la basura. Look what she left on our block. LA looking like a closet where the junk can talk. Spencer, saca la basura. Bag it up, roll it out to the street. Latinos por Pratt, we're singing, cause we're tired of this dirty beat.
Spencer Pratt, take out the trash. Pratt is running to replace Karen Bass as mayor of Los Angeles. This animated ad was posted by a group called Latinos for Pratt. It shows Pratt dancing on stage with his wife, Huddy. It also shows Pratt taking out the trash with incumbent Mayor Karen Bass sitting in the garbage. As you saw, the ad showed Bass in Ghana in January 2025 while the wildfires in LA were burning. Mayor Bass was heavily criticized for not being in LA at the time of the fires. Pratt, a former reality TV star on shows like The Hills, lost his home in the Pacific Palisades fire. His campaign centers around accountability for the wildfire poor response. Despite no experience in public office, a recent poll shows Pratt in third place at 14%. Incumbent Mayor Karen Bass is first at 25%, and City Council member Nithya Raman is second at 17%. But at the moment, 26% of the voters say they are undecided. The primary is June 2nd. Coming up, only Americans have ever walked on the moon, and yes, it was so inspiring to beat the Soviet Union. Are we now 50 years later headed back to the moon? That when the record continues.
To a hacker, your tax return isn't just paperwork, it's a gold mine. Your social security number and bank data are their biggest payday of the year. Old antivirus software can't keep up. You need PCmatic. Our default deny technology blocks every single threat that hasn't been pre-approved. If we don't know it, we block it. Secure your return right now. Buy PCmatic antivirus and we will give you PCmatic VPN for free. American-made security for homes, businesses, and government agencies. Visit PCmatic.com.
Oh no, is this the episode with the breakup?
Reba, we can't agree on the house.
Y'all need Realtor.com. With over 500,000 new listings every month, you could find the one today. This could be it. Better put a key ring on it. Realtor.com.
Leaf Filter is America's #1 gutter protection system because it's built right. And you know me, I don't just take their word for it. I visited their lab and I was impressed. I saw how Leaf Filter is engineered to keep debris out of the gutters and water flowing, helping prevent costly damage. All backed by Leaf Filter's clog-free guarantee. When it's built right, it shows. That's why it's Homes Approved.
Schedule your free gutter inspection today. Call 877-77-HOMES or visit leaffilter.com/homes.
The first time I experienced vertigo, the room was spinning, like I was in a clothes dryer. Then I started taking Lipo Balance Support. Its ingredients are clinically shown to help reduce dizziness and spinning. Take back control with lipoflavonoid.
Need blood pressure support? Total Beets contain a patented key ingredient clinically shown to deliver 2 times better blood pressure support. That's why Total Beets is the #1 best-selling beets brand in America. Take control of your health with Total Beets. Search Amazon now for Total Beets.
Forget the warm-up. DirecTV got hot. They're on fire with more MLB games than anyone.
Welcome to the big leagues, kid.
How old are you?
11.
Doctors say having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care and pharmacy at home. Let me bring in Dr. McCullough to explain more.
Most people know when they're getting sick, but waiting to see a doctor is often too late.
So the key is having medicines before you need them.
Yes, and it includes doctor-prescribed medicines to treat common and serious issues like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, antibiotics, antivirals for flu, pneumonia, strep, ear and sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
So it is like having an urgent care at home.
Exactly. No waiting, no pharmacy, no copays. You feel better faster and avoid serious complications and hospitalizations.
How do you know what to take?
Just match your symptoms to the doctor-written guide or schedule a quick telehealth call.
Great advice. I understand ordering is fast online, and we've put the website and $45 off code on the screen. Thank you, doctor.
Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code news.
It has been way too long, 50 years too long. We need to go back to the moon, and we are. After weeks of delays, NASA's Artemis II mission is set to launch Wednesday night. The mission was supposed to launch February 1st, but technical issues with the spacecraft's fuel and helium systems pushed back the launch date to this week. The Artemis II crew includes 3 NASA astronauts, Commander Reed Wiseman, pilot Victor Glover, and mission specialist Christina Cook. Who else is hitching a ride on this mission? Canada. The 4th crew member is mission specialist Jeremy Hansen. He's from the Canadian Space Agency. This lunar mission is expected to last 10 days. The mission includes a flyby on the moon. It's the first step in getting astronauts back to the moon. When was the last time the astronauts were on the moon? 1972. Those astronauts are part of the Apollo 17 mission. NASA is expecting to get boots on the moon by 2028. Former NASA astronaut, retired Navy Captain Winston Scott joins me. Captain Scott, by the way, has spent a total of 24 days, 14 hours, and 34 minutes in space. Nice to talk to you, sir.
Well, good afternoon, Brig, and thank you so much for having me on your show. It's a pleasure.
And the wildest thing is that while you're in space, you actually went for a walk. What was that like?
Well, we call it walking, but you're actually floating. I can tell you it's a lot of fun because you're floating where you need to go, but it's very, very difficult. That suit that you see me wearing, the white one, they're called the extravehicular mobility unit, it weighs over 300 pounds on Earth. Now, space is an amazing place. It doesn't weigh anything, but you still have that 300 pounds of mass to move, plus your body mass, plus your tools. So from a physical standpoint, the most demanding thing that we do is perform a spacewalk, or EVA as we call it. And I had the pleasure of performing 3 EVAs over my 2 space shuttle missions.
Well, it's wild. I was reading all about it. All right, so we're sending Artemis 2 up to do a couple, I guess they're sort of checking out the area, and they're not going to land on the moon. But I don't get this. If we've already landed on the moon 6 times, the first time going way back, beating the Soviet Union, which was so fun to beat them, why do we have to have these practice fly-arounds? Don't we have the technology to go?
Well, that's just it. It's been so long that the technology has changed now. The mission is the same, but the way we do it has changed, and the people involved are all gone. Got a new set of people, a new rocket, and this is going to be an end-to-end test of the ship, its systems, life support, navigation, propulsion, and so on. Everything except actually going to the surface. So yeah, we need to do this. It's been a long time, and this is going to be a good rehearsal for accomplishing that mission.
The other thing that's wild is that the U.S. has done this 6 times, and I think 12 astronauts have been on the moon. Yet no other nation has done it. Not one of them.
No, not at all, and because it's difficult. I mean, if it were easy, everybody would be doing it. But it's important that we do this. As you said, we haven't been in a long time. The first time we went was for political reasons. We wanted to beat the Soviet Union. But this time we want to go for not just politics. We are in a space race. That's the political side of it. But we want to go for scientific purposes. There's so much that can be learned about our solar system, about the Earth, about how it evolved from studying the moon. Also, we want to begin to explore space, and exploring deep space. The first step would be go to the moon, then perhaps off to Mars, and who knows after that. There's so many reasons that we should go there. I think this is a monumental event. We're all excited about it, and so far all systems are go. Everything's looking real good. The rocket system's looking good. The weather is 80+% go. The crew is in quarantine. They're healthy, and I can tell you, as I'm out and about in the community, even though there's so many other things going on in the news, people are really excited about the Artemis mission. I just left Kennedy Space Center a couple of hours ago, and the place is abuzz with visitors, all anticipating a good, exciting, successful Artemis launch.
What was for you? What's the wildest thing about the whole process? I mean, when you were up there, I mean, like, what is it like? It's just like you just can't believe it.
You know what? The wildest thing is just observing the Earth from up there. I can remember the first time I looked out of the space shuttle window and saw the Earth beneath me. I could see how high we were and how fast we were moving. And then the next thing is on my first space walk, when I'm outside looking over and down at the Earth and seeing how high we are and how fast we're moving. That's really awesome. Everything about space is so incredible. Even the mundane things that you don't think much about here on Earth, become really significant when you're in orbit. And it's going to be even more significant for these 4 folks who are going off farther than any astronauts have gone before, because they're going even further beyond the moon than the Apollo astronauts did 50-something years ago. So this is incredible.
You know what I think is going to be incredible is, like, if you do the spacewalk, I assume that there's some room where you seal off both sides, and then you got to get out. I mean, that's what I would think was like leaving the Challenger, or leaving that would be the most challenging to me, is getting. I'd probably be hanging onto the side. I don't know.
Well, yeah, you're right. And the spacewalk begins from an airlock. Okay, you have to depressurize. Well, you don't want to depressurize the entire ship because your buddies are inside there. So the 2 spacewalkers, and we always go out in a pair for mutual support and for safety. We enter the airlock, and then gradually, over a couple of hours period of time, we depressurize the airlock, isolating us from the rest of the crew members. Then we open the outer hatch and go outside. And we always go out in a pair because once you're out there, you're on your own. If something goes wrong, your buddies inside the ship or the station can't come out and get you. So you're out there on your own. When the spacewalk is over, the two will enter the airlock, close the outer hatch, repressurize, then we can open the inner hatch and our buddies can commune with us again. But yeah, it's an incredible event performing a spacewalk. And again, well, these folks, you know, they're not leaving the rocket this time, but think about Artemis 4 when we put boots on the moon again. They're going to actually go to the surface and the ultimate spacewalk.
Well, I'm incredibly jealous, but I must admit that if I had gone with you, is that when the shuttle landed, there were scratch marks on the side as you pried me out. Anyway, Captain Winston Scott, thank you, sir, and we'll be watching to see what happens because it's very exciting. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Now to a big heist in Europe. Last week, a truck carrying more than 400,000 Kit Kat bars disappeared while traveling from Italy to Poland. Nestle, the parent company of Kit Kat, released a statement confirming this theft. It says, quote, 12 tons of Kit Kat products were stolen while in transit between our factory in central Italy and their destination in Poland. Adding, quote, the good news, there are no concerns for consumer safety and supplies not affected, end quote. The street value of the stolen chocolate, about $827,000 to $1 million. But this Kit Kat heist is not the only heist that we've decided to follow tonight. Famous paintings were reported stolen from a private museum in northern Italy. According to local police, on the night of March 23rd, 4 masked men broke into the museum's main entrance. In just 3 minutes, 3 paintings were stolen. Those pieces are Fish by Pierre-Auguste Renoir, Still Life with Cherries by Paul Cézanne, and Odalisque on the Terrace by Henri Matisse. The total value, about $10 million. Coming up, a Michigan judge scolds the defendant in court.
You got an attitude with you, I'll tell you that. You got an attitude. I'm not putting up with this nonsense. Good luck to you.
What made him so mad? That when the record continues.
Hey, I'm Carl Higbee from Newsmax. Look, I'm unapologetically pro-American, and honestly, this is the one place that lets me call it how it is. I'm not holding back. I'll give it to you straight every single night.
I'm Elmer Heinrich, at 92 years of age with my wife Shirley, who is 83. Now, both of us are still cutting a wide swath in life, all because of Immuno 150. Now, neither of us have any kind of sickness, and we're as flexible as we were 30 years ago, and we still do the physical things we did 30 years ago. Now, we are asking you to use Immuno 150 like we do. Give it a chance for at least 90 days so that you can see what 70 plant minerals and 80 additional nutrients can do for you. You won't believe it. Immuno 150 is an awesome nutritional supplement. There's nothing like it.
Yes, it really is incredible.
Yeah, try it. You will be surprised. Order online or call the number listed on the screen, but don't place your order until after you've watched the 3 videos on our website. Thank you from both of us, and God bless.
I have a structured settlement, and I call J.G. Wentworth, 877 cash now.
I am an annuity, but I need cash now.
Call J.G. Wentworth, 877 cash now.
It's your money. Use it when you need it.
Call J.G. Wentworth, 877.
Call 877 cash now to get a $100 gift card for a free quote.
What's gold is new again. Pardon the pun. But considering gold has been used as currency since around 550 BC, it has been on fire the past year. I'm here with Daniel Boston, the founder of Preserve Gold. Why is gold so stable and such a good investment for many people?
Take the central bank, for example, the Federal Reserve. They print money out of thin air, and then they take that printed money to go buy hard assets like gold to protect themselves against the very risks that they're creating. So I always tell people, don't do what the big players are telling you to do. Do what they're doing themselves.
Yeah, watch what they're doing.
That's correct.
Okay. If people are interested in investing with Preserve Gold, how do they get started?
Text Newsmax to 50505 to get your free information and up to $15,000 in free gold and silver with a qualified purchase. That's right. Text Newsmax to 50505.
All right. No way you can miss it.
For pain in multiple spots like here, here, or here, Salonpas patches stick firmly and remove comfortably once your pain is gone. Salonpas. It's good medicine.
Another lost summer scrolling and swiping? Turns out the fix is right here. Create new lifetime memories from the comfort of your backyard. No passports, no reservations. Latham's premium handcrafted pools can be installed in weeks, not months. Our pools won't stain or crack and never require costly resurfacing. Inquire now to receive a free crystal finish upgrade valued at up to $3,000 and bring your favorite exotic watercolor and shimmer right to your own backyard. Visit lathampool.com now.
Simparica Trio protects against 3 categories of parasites.
Power of disease.
This drug class has been associated with neurologic side effects, including seizures. Use with caution in dogs with or without a history of these disorders. Don't just protect, triple protect.
In Michigan, a virtual court hearing went haywire. The defendant was in court for defaulting on a consumer debt. Here's what happened. First, the defendant skipped her court appearance, not good. So the judge issued a default judgment against the woman for not appearing. When the woman finally logged into her virtual hearing, her camera was turned off and she was doing something she should not be doing. Here's their exchange.
You cannot be driving, ma'am. What are you doing? Come on.
I'm not driving. I'm a passenger in a car.
You're still not, I'm not hearing cases with people driving or as passengers in cars. Am I crazy, or does it not look like you're driving that car?
I'm not driving the car. I'm a passenger in the car, sir.
What side of the car are you on?
I'm on the left-hand side.
How would you be on the left-hand side if you're a passenger in the front seat? Am I missing something?
Right-hand side. I'm sorry. I've been sitting in a room. I didn't know.
Let me see the driver. Let me see the driver.
Hang on 1 second.
Now.
I have to ask their permission.
Now.
Oh my God.
Oh, you're not in the you weren't in the driver's side. You think I'm that stupid?
The paperwork that I'm looking at, it does not say that I cannot be in a car.
I'm entering a default judgment. You lied to me. You got an attitude with you, I'll tell you that. You got an attitude. I'm not putting up with it. Nonsense. Good luck to you.
Well, obviously the judge was not particularly happy with the woman. The judge accused the defendant of lying, as you heard. Then he ended the hearing. The judge did not vacate the default judgment. As a consequence, the woman was ordered to pay more than $1,900 for her debt and the court fees. Thank you for watching. Ed Henry, The Big Take is next. Stay with Newsmax.